Hello, comrades, and welcome back to Ushanka Show, stories about life in the Soviet Union. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи! В эфире программа Ushanka Show. In today's video, I'm gonna continue to review the book Black on Red, My 44 Years Inside the Soviet Union by Black American engineer Robert Robertson. So let's learn together what was Robert Robertson's experience with the Soviet college education. I gotta give this guy credit. Besides working 12 hours a day without days off, since during the war there was no days off for Soviet workers, he wanted to get a degree of full-fledged mechanical engineer. So in the evening he attended classes, so working all day, going to classes at night, and sometimes he was asked to return to the factory after his evening classes to do additional work on some projects. And here's the fine example of the problems that he encountered during his education. He wrote, "I had failed the laboratory examination in electricity 3 times, even though I knew the subject matter inside and out. A teaching assistant was instructing us in the lab. When I told a friend of mine about my problem, he laughed and asked me, 'Comrade Robinson, did the assistant ask you to consult with him about the examination every time he failed you?' 'Well, yes,' I answered, somewhat puzzled. 'Let me explain. You have violated an unwritten rule of the institute.' Institute is like a university. 'You see, the man asks you to consult with him because every time a student comes to him for extra help, he receives 10 extra rubles from the institute for tutoring. He expects you to meet him at least 3 times. That way he receives 30 rubles. I took my friend's advice, met the assistant 3 times, and asked to take the examination again. This time, with the same answers as before, I passed." And once again, it reminded my experience in Kiev Polytechnical Institute when I was going to evening classes also to get a degree in electrical engineering. And we had labs, and we knew that we need to grease some wheels to make sure that everyone passed the lab. So I was in charge in my group to talk to assistants and see what they want. So usually I would bring a bottle of vodka. And one time they look at the bottle, they took it and said, "Well, we need to have some snacks with the vodka. Do you have any money?" So I had to dig in my pockets and give them I don't know, it was maybe $2-3 worth of Ukrainian currency, and then everyone passed in my class. And back to Robert Robertson. So when he finally finished his education, which took him 7 years, so he went to these evening classes before the war and through the war. So he was on his way to pick up his diploma, so he rushed to the institute after work. But when he reported to the office, instead of diploma, I was handed a slip of paper. It said that I was to report to a factory in Stalingrad, where that I would be paid 800 rubles a month, and I was to live in a hostel with 3 other engineers. That would be not a career advancement, it would be a setback, because in Moscow I was making 1200 rubles and had my own room. So here you go, you're getting a degree of engineer, and instead of 1200 rubles you go down to 800 rubles and be sent from the capital of the country back to Stalingrad. So Robert Robertson rejected the offer, and as a result, he was not given the diploma. During the next 2 years, he made several protests to the institute administration, but got nowhere. So he finally worked through the director of his factory and managed to get his diploma and remained in Moscow. Then Comrade Robertson continues, "Other students were less fortunate, those without influential connections. So once again, you need to have blood, and who had passed all of their subjects but refused to take the assignment offered, were never allowed to practice engineering professionally." So once again, they will be sent all over the country for 2 years at least, and then there is a good chance you will never come back to your hometown. "I knew one young woman who took a job in Moscow sweeping the streets, and a young man who joined a road construction crew rather than accept unappealing assignments. Beginning in 1938, 9 night college students at the institute had to pay 100 rubles a semester. So it was not that the government was paying for the students' education in return for work commitment. Most students felt, as I did, that a person paying for his education should have a say where he works. My education cost me 1,200 rubles. So ergo, kind of interesting that during the Stalin era, people had to pay for their education. Although it wasn't much money because Robertson was making 1,200 rubles a month and he paid for his education 1,200 rubles a month. But I agree with him. If you pay for your education, then government shouldn't order you to go whatever they want. I see it as a fair deal. If you get education for free, then you have to go and kind of pay back. Similar like if you join military, then government pays for education. But this is an interesting situation here. And I need to add that only on June 6, 1956, so after the death of Stalin, and when Nikita Khrushchev became a leader of the Soviet Union, there was a law that college education and high school, we didn't call it high school, but high school in the Soviet Union became free again. So there was a big period of time in the Soviet Union under Stalin when Soviet people had to pay for their education. And here's an interesting anti-Soviet jab from Comrade Robertson when he talks about Soviet education. Here he says, Soviet education does not stress the development of a well-rounded, developed mind. For this reason, the Soviet intelligentsia is different from the intellectual elite in the West. This is an important point which is the West needs to understand. And of course, comparing Soviet college education with American college education deserves a separate video, but generally I tend to agree. We had more specialized degrees, and here in America, well, especially when it's, everyone's getting into college because there's no future if you don't have a college degree, and so many young Americans get in these useless degrees, business communication, business development. They spend 4 years in college, spend tons of money, and then they work as the managers of the gas station, making a little bit more than minimum wage. It's really kind of ridiculous. So I don't know the solution of this problem. I got my degree for free, and I managed to apply it here in America, but a lot of times what I see people, they pick the easiest degree they can get because they're afraid to study math, study physics, chemistry. So we got the whole wave of young generations with totally useless degrees but expectations of decent pay and decent lifestyle. Okay, so back to Robert Robertson. So he was telling the story about how he tried to improve different things at his factory. He designed new tools. And then he's complaining that as a black man and a foreigner, although he had a Soviet passport, being a Soviet citizen, I only received grudging recognition for my contributions to the industrial development of the Soviet Union. Rewards given me were always more a spit in the eye than a pat on the back. That's pretty harsh right there. Over the years, I garnered more than 20 awards, medals, and citations for my inventions and my work. However, none of those awards and nothing I ever did gained me a promotion or a significant pay raise, while my colleagues who had graduated with me from Moscow Evening Institute of Mechanical Engineering had been promoted to directors of factories, chief engineers of factories, and the like. And here I just wanted to say, welcome to the Soviet Union, buddy, because we had this saying, "Поработал дурачок, получи себе значок." You worked hard, fool. Now here's the badge for you. One of those famous badges, ударник коммунистического труда. My father had one of those. So you work very hard, and instead of having a bonus, they just give you a badge, and maybe they'll place your photo on the board of the most hardworking people at the factory. And that's pretty much it. And I find it interesting how the Robert Robertson experiences this domestic Soviet racism versus institutionalized racism in the United States. I mean, America back in the 30s, that was quite official, right? That there's restaurants for black people, there's restaurants for white people, bathrooms white and black. So you kind of knew what you're walking into. In the Soviet Union, officially everyone was equal, but then in everyday life, he's experiencing that as a black man, I received only grudging recognition and never got promoted. And I wonder, what is actually worse? And actually, before we wrap up, I want to share a little story that happened to me when I came to work in a summer camp here in Michigan. So I was a lifeguard helping at fishing activity, and it was a hot day, and there was nothing going on. So kids were just kind of hanging out. I was sitting kind of my eyes half closed, and a couple of black counselors from Chicago were just kind of chatting, and I could hear what they talk, and they thought I was asleep. So they were like, yeah, man, I really hate our camp director who was white. He gives us hard time because we're blacks, and, generally I hate white people. And I hear another guy's like, but what about this CJ guy right there? And he's like, well, he's not white, he's Russian. Anyway, what an amazing book, Black and Red by Robertson. There's more to talk about it. I'm about halfway through. We're almost at the end of the war. There's some interesting developments coming up. Stay tuned. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye. Hey, by the way, the cool merch for cool comrades is available at the Ushanka store at teespring.com. Just a friendly reminder that my book American Diaries is available on amazon.com, or shoot me an email if you would like to have a signed copy. Thank you. And if you love my channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the Ushanka Show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new, interesting videos about the life in Soviet Union.